Hey everybody, welcome back to Equity Guru. This is Chris Parry, your founder, president, chief bottle washer, wrestling promoter, and commentator. Today we have Anoosh Manzoori, all the way from Melbourne, Australia's second best city, talking about Sparc AI, SPARC not .ai, but AI. The ticker symbol is SPAI, and Anoosh, you're in the AI space. When people hear this, do they automatically like give you the furrowed eyebrow and wonder like what your scam is?
Well, I think like with any new industry that's emerging, there's always actors that not necessarily playing well. But look, we've got a technology that actually has been in development for about 12 years, well before the term AI was even invented. We've got a series of patents around the world. And, we're now in a position where we've got something that can actually be put into a drone and actually taken to market and commercialized. So we're pretty excited with where we're at the moment.
Yeah, my first look at your technology had all my alarm bells around autonomous driving going off about how it might be useful, considering there's been so much AI driving clutter about LiDAR and radar and laser and GPS. But in talking to you, you're more focused on the drone side of things. What do you see as being the primary initial, at least, use case for your technology?
Yeah, so the initial use case really is around this concept of target acquisition system. If you're standing out in the field somewhere and looking at something that's say a kilometre away, there's no real way that you can use GPS to work out the location of that object. So whether you've got GPS or where you're standing is actually irrelevant. You might have GPS and that's fine, but you can't work out the location of something that's a kilometre away from you.
Mm-hmm.
So the technologies that exist today to solve that problem are things like LiDAR, radar, or laser finder. Some people try to use image recognition if they can recognize that image, but it's quite a challenge. All these technologies have their limitations. So the defence have a range of products they use, and they're called target acquisition systems, and they combine these 3 or 4 technologies together on the one unit. So they typically sit on a tripod. They're quite expensive. They're quite heavy. There's one group, for example, that actually has a 50-metre cord attached to it, so the operator could be away from the unit because obviously you're looking at the enemy, but the enemy could be looking at you. These things aren't covert. And so, they're expensive things, right? And then if you want to take this technology and put it on a drone, well, first of all, it's too heavy. It's very expensive. It's just not going to work on a light, a few $1,000 drone. It might work on a drone the size of a small plane that costs tens of millions of dollars. But you can see there are some limitations in terms of trying to do this. So what Sparc does is effectively a software-based solution. So it's got a series of algorithms that can determine the location of any distant object without any supporting hardware. The only thing we actually use is the camera. That's really for our benefit as a user, so we can see what we're looking at. In fact, I did a demonstration where I blindfolded the camera, and we can still determine the location of where we're pointing at. So there's a series of algorithms. We've got a patent around it. We've developed a whole suite of software around this technology that obviously we haven't disclosed, as part of a patent. It's this proprietary that allows us to basically target acquisition an object that could be tens of kilometers away from us. And then we've extended this further by actually saying, well, if we can determine location of objects in front of us, we can actually build an autonomous vehicle whereby we can navigate autonomously without GPS whilst using these algorithms to help us navigate.
That's a lot of tech that is just wiped off the board. Because legitimately right now in the battlefield, You've got drones that have laser technology to acquire a target. But the moment you're tossing a laser out on the field, you're spottable, right? If you're sending radar signals out, you're spottable. And, it's a very uh, obvious need for stealth, being, the presence of stealth drones. You can't just be sending pings out all over the battlefield that an enemy can glom onto and wipe out your technology. So one question I do have for you, though, is if you're covering the camera, how exactly is the system registering anything?
Yeah, so we know the terrain, Chris, of obviously planet Earth, right? And so we can take the terrain and actually put it onto the device, could be on the camera or on the drone directly. And then we can use a set of algorithms based on the tilt, if you like, the XYZ tilt of the camera in terms of where it's pointing at. That intersect of where it's looking at, where it hits the ground, that delta between the height and the height of the location, we can work out the location of effectively what we're pointing at. So as long as we've got the terrain, which we do, we can work out the location where we're pointing at.
That's crazy. So I hesitate to call it a manual solution, an analog solution, but considering the amount of high-tech, expensive gear that this undoes the necessity of, I hesitate to find another phrase that would better describe it.
Yeah, we're sort of displacing some of the incumbents, right? And we're relying on software and algorithm to actually make those calculations. Because at the end of the day, from where you're standing, looking at an object a kilometer away, it's just mathematics, right? So we've got the mathematics to actually be able to calculate that distance between the two objects.
Right. So the tough bit on anything to do with military or government is obviously getting into the system, getting, past all security checks, getting things tested out, having them figure out, first of all, they want to do business with you, then that they can do business. Have you, at this point, started that process? Do you have a way in?
Yeah, we have started that process. I think we're probably about maybe 2 to 3 months away from being at a point where we've got a really full commercial product to bring to market. We're currently working on version 2.0. We also have got this crazy drone that we're building that can basically autonomously fly by itself without any sort of connectivity to a radio or to base. So I think within the next sort of 2 or 3 months, we'll be in a position where we've got a product that's commercially ready, that's been extensively tested. Typically, to go to market, we have to go through a distribution channel. So commercially, one opportunity for us is to have this available embedded into drone operating software or drone flight management software, where it just becomes part of the drone, and then you can activate this, on a SaaS model, whether you're trying to determine the location of, something to do in the crop for farming or for site inspections for commercial or property. That market is, I guess, a much lower hanging fruit for us to get to revenue relatively quickly, because there's a very clear distribution path there for us to integrate into drones, into CDKs, into other distributors. So Parry is a good example. We chose the Parry drone, which was a drone designed for the US military. It's used by first responders around the world, and they've got an indirect sales model. So they don't sell directly to the military, they don't sell directly to the police force. They go through these authorized resellers, which is about 100 of them around the world. There's only one in Australia, for example. And so you can partner up with these sorts of companies. They not only provide the drone, provide the flight training, but they also bring in technology companies that add value to the drone to solve their particular use cases. So again, for the military, we've got a fairly clear distribution path to get ourselves in front of the right decision makers. For us to go and do it ourselves will take us years.
Yeah.
We may or may not be successful, but if we go through those companies that are already supplying products and services to the military, it's going to be a lot easier for us to be part of that mix.
No doubt. That's a good quick way in to not have to go through that ordeal. The Parrot obviously is a drone that's been used for a long time and for not just military, but for first responders. I think you see this as being something really valuable to first responders in the short term. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something that obviously for first responders, there's situational awareness and surveillance. There's also the need to capture evidence, right? So again, being able to target acquisition, record the location of events happening at a very precise level is going to be very useful. Also, with the ability to have autonomous flight. So, for example, we've already got the ability now that we've demonstrated where we can target something, say, a kilometer away, and then the drone can automatically fly to that location and investigate and then fly back. This is done in a completely GPS denied sort of environment. So I think there's a lot of use cases that we can sort of fit into with this sort of technology.
For sure. So geolocation is an increasing issue with drones, right? Where you can fly is as important as being able to fly. Does your software take that into consideration, whether there's no fly zones or height restrictions or municipal rules for that matter?
Yeah, so it doesn't do that on its own. But having said that, if you take a drone in a particular environment that there's some restrictions in terms of its height or in terms of ability to fly particular zones, we can certainly do that. We can even create an orchestrated flight path purely using the Spark coordinates as opposed to using traditional GPS coordinates as well. So we can, create a bespoke use case, if you like, for every type of client.
If the object moves, does Spark recognize that and consider it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't recognize it. It doesn't follow it. But it's a good question because there's nothing stopping us from using Spark with other technologies, right? So there is technology already available that can follow a particular object. We can certainly combine that using Spark.
So we touched on earlier on the general AI industry. It seems to have blown up really large, and of course come back to earth a little bit once the bubbles deflated. Do you find people are looking for good AI ideas, or is the AI terminology a little bit soiled right now?
Yeah, I think from where we're sitting, people are looking for AI solutions that are really solving real world problems. It's very easy, I think, to get caught up in the hype of AI. AI is not going to solve everything, but I think if you actually have real AI in terms of real technology, not just processing third party data and solving a real problem, I think you're going to be around for a long time.
It's kind of reminds me of blockchain, where a whole bunch of companies were just saying we're a blockchain company, and it was like, yeah, but blockchain and what? Like, what are you doing with blockchain? It's one thing to be an AI company, but what is it that you're actually doing with AI that makes sense in the real world? And I think,
Yeah.
quite frankly, with the way the world is right now, with the number of conflicts that are out there, but even outside of conflicts, just search and rescue or being able to spot a bad guy hiding in the bushes. There's a lot of use cases for what you're developing here, and billions of dollars being spent on the highest of high-tech solutions that may be sort of overthinking the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can, if you look at the defense spending, there's a real shift towards high tech investments as opposed to traditional, artillery and weapons. There's also, a lot of focus actually on emerging technologies. So we're seeing a lot more startups that are starting to develop, technologies that have been taken up by the military as well at a much faster pace than previously. So I think it's a very interesting time to be in this space.
So the big question, I guess, for retail investors who might be new to the story is Spark, nice tech, good ideas, got patents, that's great, and might be really important when the tech is proven out. But how long will it take to get you to a place where it's monetizable, where things are proven to the point where potential customers are coming to you?
Yeah, I think we're at a point, Chris, where definitely over the next sort of 2 to 3 months, we'll be at a point where we've got a commercial viable product. We had to prove that this technology works at a very simple level on a mobile phone. So we did some crazy tests. Everything from driving at 100 k's an hour and testing it, taking it on top of buildings, doing it at night time. So we really tried to break the technology at a very simple level. And then we've managed to get it onto 3 different microchips. So we can now got a portable hardware device that we could integrate and sell directly to customers. And now we've also successfully installed it on a military grade drone that works perfectly well as well. So we're at a point now where we're just refining it. We're really doing a lot of situation type testing to work out what the scope of this technology is. And we're also working on version 2, which will have a lot more capability and features for this product. So we're getting to a point where we'll be able to go to market and sign up distributors and then hopefully get ourselves in front of customers. We also launched recently a service offering where we can actually provide some services around integration work or some consulting work. If a particular customer has a particular use case that wants to, say, combine it with vision recognition or some other sort of technology, that we can then provide that add-on service for those customers.
The monetizing plan, is it a one-off sale, or is it an ongoing contract that you're looking at down the road?
Yeah, we haven't finalized the pricing, but if we were to do some sort of peer-to-peer sort of comparables of sort of add-on software that's sort of enterprise level or military grade that's sold onto existing drones, it's anywhere between sort of $2,500 to $5,000 a year per drone as a subscription. So that's typically what we're looking at. It also depends on the complexity and the cost of the drone. Obviously, if Ukraine, for example, wants 10,000 of these on low grade cheap drones, it'll be a different price per drone versus a much more high end drone that we sell to the United States. But it will be sold as a subscription model per drone per annum.
Do we have your commitment that good guys only?
Yes, absolutely.
Good, good, absolutely. Good. That's always a big question for me when things touch on military. It's like, if the US says no, we don't go to Vlad, do we?
No, absolutely. We're a Canadian listed company, so only good guys.
Only good guys. All right, man. Well, look, I think that it's really interesting looking at your share chart right now, because it is a story that has been undertold so far. You've been in development. You've been in developing and testing technology rather than the growth phase. But your share chart's held up. I know you've been buying in on this for not months but years. When did you first find the project and get dragged in?
Yeah, so it would have been probably close to 5 years ago.
Okay.
So I was introduced to Simon Langdon, who was the founder of the company. He was a mathematician by trade, and he'd spent at that time about 5-6 years developing the technology. He received a lot of government support as well, and funding. And so I was really the first investor that invested in the company. And there's been subsequent rounds of funding, and I've participated in every single round. And I joined the board, I think it's just over 18 months ago, where Simon was sort of struggling with the capital markets. He's not really probably the best guy to front a commercial strategy, although he did sell it to Telstra, which is Australia's largest telco. They were using it for bushfire detection on fixed cameras. He sold it to Vic Roads, which is the largest sort of manager of our freeway highway system in Victoria. So these were sitting on emergency management vehicles. So the technology certainly worked on a fixed camera type model. But the way he structured the software, he had to basically go into every customer and basically do a whole development work every single time the customer wanted to use it. So it was a very clunky way to commercialize, very expensive. and it was, it's just quite limited in terms of its scalability. So you couldn't scale it. So when we stepped in, we basically rewrote the whole software from scratch. Our first sort of task was to put it on a microchip so we can then distribute the chip, have that easily integrated and give it scale. And then we've got it to a point now where we've got a software kit that we can easily install onto any device. And we've also managed to actually get it onto a drone, which has some additional complexity, with the drone moving, with shift, with wind, curvature of the earth. There's a whole range of additional physics problems that we had to solve in doing that.
Got it. On the business model side of things, $2,000 to $5,000 per drone as a license. How much of that is margin?
We're probably about 95% plus margin. We will wholesale that out to the distributor. Distributor will obviously add their margin. They'll add other things, to it and wrap it up as part of their offering. But for us, it's it's over 95% margin now.
So once the dev work is done and the sales work is done, it's money for Jam.
Yeah, it's a big investment up front, but we'll definitely recoup that once we get into the subscription of this software.
Is there anything that you worry about that could get in the way of this software getting picked up, or have you de-risked it to the point where you're happy?
We're definitely over the hump in terms of the technical risk. So I did have a number of shareholders call me and say, you plan to put this on a $25,000 drone. Obviously, you put it on a cheap drone first, haven't you? And we hadn't. But we tested it so extensively on a phone, on a fixed camera. Plus, we knew the history of the company. We were pretty confident the mathematics would work on a drone. So we're at a point where we're pretty comfortable where the technology is. We don't have any sort of technical risk. Our risk really now comes down to finding distributors and getting this in front of customers.
I guess the good thing is mathematics rarely change over time.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah. If there was one extra thing that you'd like investors to know about Sparc AI, is there anything left that we haven't mentioned?
Well, look, from a management point of view, we're very committed. The insiders own, just under 40% of this company. I've been bankrolling this company since I took over about 18 months ago. We haven't done any sort of large financing since then, and we'll continue to support this company financially until we get to a point of commercialization.
Well, I see through your news releases that it's a steady drumbeat of testing and proving out the technology. So congrats on what you've achieved so far. There's a lot of startups out there that are in the kind of space that you're in that, raise hundreds of millions, billions to achieve less.
Yeah, well, we've been pretty efficient in the way we've managed the company. We've all got a lot of experience in terms of developing tech and bringing tech to commercialization and exit. So not our first rodeo, but we're definitely committed to the success of the business.
So everybody, get out there and get this on your watch list. SPAI is the ticker symbol. It's on the CSE. Sparc AI is the name of the company, and sparcai.co is the website. Anoosh Manzoori, thank you very much for chatting with us, and look forward to hearing more about the company in the weeks and months ahead.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks for your time.